Hey guys, welcome to the very first episode of the Launch Your Real Life podcast. I'm going to make it my mission to help young Christians transition from full financial dependence on their parents and family to complete financial independence and everything in between. So, the reason that this is near and dear to my heart is that one, I made that transition. Every adult has made that transition. Every adult that is living on their own, taking care of their own bills, things like that. And my story is one thing. There's a lot of stories where that transition doesn't go too smoothly, or maybe instead of good habits being handed off from parent to child, maybe some really bad habits or some coping mechanisms were passed down. And so I think that there's just not a whole lot of conversation out there giving language to this phase of life. And I think there's not a whole lot of structure out there to help and engage in that process. And so I'm saying a lot of words right now. Guess what? I'm doing a podcast so that I can stumble over my words, so that I can look down at my notes, and I'm not going to heavily edit this because one, hopefully, if you're listening to this, you may be listening on a podcast platform, you may be watching on YouTube, and I do ask that you like and subscribe if this is something that resonates with you. But I'm just gonna put it out there that this is my missions. This is something I want to help with, and I am currently living a life right now that is crazy and insane and has kids and responsibilities. And so, one of the first lessons that I'm going to take on myself to be an example of is you can only do what you can do. Right. And so I'm not here to dress this up like it's a full blown operation. I'm a guy with a webcam, a laptop, and a microphone, and a poorly used circle light back there. And I am going to, despite that, do my very best to help, because here's the thing. As I've started working with clients in my financial coaching business, New Story Financial Coaching, I'm starting to already get a sense of just the no man's land that this topic is, and engaging with people who are in college or about to get married, and hearing about their background, hearing about their process. And there's not a very clear path for how parents are supposed to hand off responsibility to their kids uh, over time, and sometimes that's just not even possible. And also, there's not a whole lot of roadmap for a student to take ownership, right, of some of those things. And I really want to help pave the way for that for future students. And I want to break cycles. Unfortunately, a lot of as I mentioned earlier, a lot of parent to child transitions are or transitions into adulthood, right? They come with a lot of either bad habits, or frankly, a lot of adults don't know much about finances and how to handle their own finances. And so it's no wonder that they don't know how to teach that. They don't know how to pass that on to their child to set them up for success. And what's happening, what I'm seeing, is that a lot of people are going through college. They're being completely or mostly subsidized by their parents. The money doesn't even pass through their hands, right? Maybe they have a part-time job, but they're not made to handle and be responsible for the cash flow that's coming in and out of their lives. It's going completely around them. And so when they suddenly graduate and they find themselves in a $60,000 position, right? They don't know what to do with that money. And in fact, before that, most of the time, they're already making choices that are digging holes for themselves that they may be in for the rest of their life unless they can turn around. And what I've seen is that there are a lot of adults who are in their 30s and 40s, and they are trying to dig themselves out of those holes. Well, my goal is to prevent young people from getting in those holes in the first place. And I know there is a lot of great financial advice out there. There's a lot of great content out there. And so, why should you listen to me? Well, I'm going to I'm going to be upfront. When there's people that can explain things better than I am, I'm going to send you their way. The Money Guys, for instance. I love the Money Guy Show. It's a podcast and a YouTube channel. They're great guys. They've got a great plan. But even their plan, their financial order of operations kind of requires you to have a baseline financial foundation. And so what I hope to go into, if this is something that interests you, is I hope to go into the nitty gritty of like account structures. We're going to talk about financial concepts, of course, but we're also going to talk about how do you get a job? What kind of people skills do you need? How do you work connections, and network, right? How do you maintain community when you suddenly find yourself in the adult world that is very isolating? Right? How can you maintain friendships? How can you pursue relationships in a godly way? And most importantly, how can your finances truly reflect what you believe and what you value in life? Right? How can you be generous when the world says that the economy is shot to heck, and and that there is no hope for Gen Z or millennials or whatever? How can you be not only successful and thriving, but generous in that? And so that's what my mission is going to be with this podcast. Um, I recently, some of you, if you're listening to this first episode, you may know me personally, and I so appreciate you checking this out. You may be wondering what happened to that YouTube channel you were doing. Well, just to keep it simple, I realized that what I was doing was I was just spewing a lot of financial thought right out to people. And in trying to help everybody, I was really speaking to nobody. And so I had to do some soul searching to find out, one, who can I help? What really motivates me to help people, right? And for me, thinking back, I made a lot of good choices and some lousy mistakes. And I think back to that time of my life that had so much potential. And I'm 30. I'm not gray hair yet, but there's a whole lot of power in setting yourself up right in your 20s. And the things that I did do right, and my spouse and I did right, have given us a lot of blessings, even though we're still working hard. It has given us a whole lot of breathing room that a lot of people don't have. And it could have even been better. And so I know that there's so much potential, right? There's so much that can happen when a young person really grasps and takes hold of this idea. Also, I really want to see a change in the direction of the younger generations, where we turn back to, especially as Christians, hearts of generosity. And that's a journey I'm going on as well, because I am uh, learning what it means to be intentional, to go above and beyond, to make generosity a part of my life and not just a post-it note on the side. I'm still working on that, but I think that when you look at the stats, very few professing Christians give a significant percent, or give any kind of percentage to even their church, and frankly that's baseline, right? And then when you get to the people who are really invested in their church, it's a little bit higher. But mostly our churches are held together by the elders, right? our seniors that are in retirement, and that's great. But I want to see a generation rise up that is fueled not by acclaim, as our culture really seeks right now, but is fueled by the impact that our money and our finances can have, as well as our time and talents, right? And I know I'm going to be speaking to a lot of students, a lot of young people who, frankly, there doesn't seem to be money for that. So why even learn about that? Because, like I said, you're going to be stepping into jobs that are full time. And if you are stepping into that with no financial foundation, right, and you're struggling to pay your own bills, you're struggling to um, have your own rent, right? You're getting making choices that put you in debt unduly, then you're not going to have that margin. And so the last thing on your mind is going to be generosity, when the fact of the matter is that we are so wealthy in this country and you have so much potential ahead of you. And so, again, I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I'm not saying that I have it all figured out. In fact, I'm not here as an expert. I'm here, and some of you have heard me say this before, I'm here as someone who's just a few steps ahead, that's been where you are, and I can point out the potholes along the way, make the way straighter and smoother as you make it. And so, again, what I'm seeing as I'm talking to people is that there really, most of the time, is no plan on how a student graduates high school, they turn 18, and then they go off to college. There's no plan to get them from that total dependent state, right, to ready whenever they're stepping into full-time income to take care of themselves, pay their own bills, right, have their own investments, have their own financial foundation that is independent, right? And so what we're seeing is a lot of enmeshment and not clean breaks, and leaving and cleaving. And even in marriage, I'm gonna be doing this podcast in general to young Christians in this phase of life, but I am specifically working one-on-one with engaged couples, because that's a time where it's you know make or break. It's time to leave and cleave to each other. And if there hasn't been a foundation, right, set, or even if it has, even if you have two great foundations, there's still a blending of lives, a blending of finances. And so I like to help make that smooth on a one-to-one basis. And if that's you, I would love for you to reach out, click the link in the description and check out uh, that. But if you but I understand students in general, you don't have a whole lot of disposable income. So come check out the podcast, and I'll keep you updated on other ways that I want to help in make tangible resources, right? And make a community where we can go through this together. That being said, I just want to thank you for checking out episode 1. And unlike my YouTube channel, you now know exactly who I'm talking to. I'm talking to parents and students, mainly the students, but also the parents that are trying to make this transition from total dependence to independence. And so if you know somebody in that position who could use some advice or could use some guidance, then shoot them this podcast. And I hope that I'll be able to, put new episodes out weekly, and maybe hopefully talk to some guests that'll give unique insight and some valuable advice. Yeah, and I'm really excited about this. Again, I'm gonna do minimal editing on these, um, but I want you to know that I think that this point in your life is worth investing in. It's worth taking seriously. And as Christians, we don't have the luxury of the fatalistic mindset that is really common today. No, we need to take our own life by the horns, as it were, and align it and have our finances, which is such a huge indicator of what you value, have our finances align with what we believe. So, thank you so much for checking out this episode. If there's more episodes, I hope you keep listening. If this is the first one, then that you found and I haven't released more yet, I hope you will subscribe and wait for the next episodes to drop next week. Yeah, again, my name is Bobby Henderson. I'm a financial coach, and my goal is to demystify and make a clear path for you to have this transition, to equip you and encourage you and empower you to become an independent, self-sufficient adult in this world so that you can be the light that God has called us to be. So with that said, I will see you guys next week.